The spring game is coming up on the 20th or 27th?
The 20th.
20th. So we are just over a week away. Okay. Tim, did you pull anything from this week's activities out there?
Again, it's not like the old days where you could sit there and watch the entire practice. Really, what you get to see is just a bunch of drills, guys hitting sleds, guys, running through just ball possession drills, strip drills. All the good stuff is behind the curtain. Who's running with which group, is behind the curtain. But in general, I would just say that we're starting to find, and there's from the words that are being said from the coaches about what is shaping up as far as a penciled in lineup for the fall. Like, for instance, last week we talked about it. We talked about on Trojans Wire, we talked about here, how when Coach Entz was talking about the linebackers, he talked about how quickly the veteran linebackers have picked up. And he talked right away about Easton Macarinas Arnold, about how he is, really picking up the Mike position. Kind of basically made it sound like, hey, it's his job to lose. And then right away he talked about Mason Cobb, and he talked about how his leadership and his veteran, he's picking it up well. And then he talked about the freakish nature of Eric Gentry, where you have a guy his size, his wingspan, his ability, his smarts. I mean, he talked about all three of them, how quickly he's picking up the defense, and just what a disruptor that he's going to be on the defense side of the ball. And then we talked to Coach Riley, and I asked him point blank, we know we've got a pretty good idea who's going to be on that left side, right? So we know that you're going to have Elijah Page at left tackle. Most likely you're going to have Emmanuel Prangley at left guard. And then we know that Jonah Monheim's moving from left tackle to center this year. But there's still kind of this gray area about who's going to be the right guard, who's going to be the right tackle. And he really started breaking it down for us. And so listening to the coaches lately, they're starting to let us in a little bit, right? We're not at practice, but they're starting to tell us who's running with who. Like, for instance, Mason, he said, Riley said Mason Murphy is running in the vast majority of snaps at right tackle. And if we were to play today, he would be our starting right tackle. I mean, he just keep flat out, and he just said that. We know that Gino Quinones is coming back from injury. So, I mean, that's a situation at right guard. But then you're going to have the young guys moving up. You're going to have, Amos Taulele and Michael Banuelos is coming off of an injury. But you're going to have Alani Noah, and they're going to be battling for that right guard position as well, and filling in left and right guard. But it's starting to shape up. We're starting to get information, although we're not watching it. We're starting to get information from the coaches on how they're seeing the team is responding to their coaching and the new scheme.
And just to highlight Tim's work at Trojans Wire, I mean, like he's asking some direct questions of the coaching staff, getting some very helpful, clarifying answers. So just want to commend Tim for the reporting, the actual shoe leather that he's putting forth in the field and on the field, as it were. And, Tim gathered some quotes from Lincoln Riley also about Tobias Raymond, and we're going to be publishing that later this week at Trojans Wire. But like Tim is asking the right questions, and he's getting some very interesting answers from the coaches. So just want to spotlight Tim's work at Trojans Wire. You really want to be reading our football reporter, Tim Prangley.
I don't want to give too much away, but again, there's a theme we're hearing about a lot of these guys, especially in the linebacking room and the offensive lines, is they're all very bright. Very bright, picking everything up really quickly. And just little short tidbit, if you should check it out. We'll have the Tobias Raymond story out later this week. He's coming along quick. He came in, they knew he'd be a development piece, right? But he put on that weight. He's adjusted to that weight, and we'll go into more detail in the story. But yeah, really, really exciting news, because let's face it, you need tackles. I mean, whether it's going to be in the transfer portal or not, we're going to need as many tackles, because you don't go through a season without losing offensive linemen. It never happens. Guys are either playing hurt. You don't want to have a situation where you have a guy out there playing on one leg, because that's happened. That happened, in 2022. We had guys playing. Voorhees was playing injured a lot of that season. Sure, he's out there. They wheel him out there, but he's not 100%. So you really need that depth, and but we can't stress it more. Another funny thing that Lincoln Riley said is like, people keep talking about we're going to the Big Ten, Mark. He's like, these things were changing. People think that we're doing all this because we're entering the Big Ten. He's like, these are the changes that this team, the evolution, need to make. This is what we needed to do to become a better ball club. So we're not making these decisions specifically to join the Big Ten, but you can see that they are making the line play more stout, more tough, and that's seriously something we've seen. We talked about the softness and the inability just to kind of impose your will on either side of the field. And now you're starting to see that, hopefully, with the pieces they're putting together.
The Washington game, to me, sticks out as the game that I just thought was the most egregious indictment against the rush defense, and both from a physical standpoint, but also a schematic standpoint, where you could drive trucks through the line. The gaps were unbelievable in that game in particular.
And one of the things, I mean, it's painful to remember this, but like just in terms of analysis, like it's instructive, Mark, just to kind of follow up on what you said. It's not as though Washington's running plays were really complicated, intricate plays. Like these weren't misdirections. They weren't like traps or, delays with, clever ball handling, sleight of hand, anything like that. No, they were just simple toss sweeps. Just toss the ball right away. No misdirection, no pretense, no disguise, and just flip it left, flip it right, and Washington would gash USC. So that just to kind of reinforce your point there.
I am in no way, shape, or form, because one, I'm not that crazy to defend our defense on any level. But I will say this: you saw what they were doing. They were taking away the pass. You're talking about Michael Penix and that passing attack. And they did hold them to under, like I think it was like 250 in that range, whatever yards. So they picked their poison, and obviously you saw it. What they did is if you're a playoff level team, if someone tries to take away your passing game, what do? You're going to annihilate them on the ground, and that's exactly what they did. I agreed that defense was it is what it was. We could pick through it again if we want, but the reason why they gave up that many yards is because they held a prolific passing team down the passing game. The same result happened, right? But they chose they're going to take away the passing game, and they let them put up like historic numbers on the ground. So